All right, well, let's get started. Thank you so much for popping into this webinar, this series for investment real estate. This is the first of a series of 5 webinars that will be held every other Tuesday over the summer, and all of them will be uploaded to my YouTube channel at stacylovesrealestate.com. And if you missed being here and would like to get the handout so you can follow along and also get the important information, our guest speaker today, Chris Coyne, from GCA Insurance and Financial is going to be presenting about, make sure you reach out to me if you can't download it today or from the website. So we're going to go through this PowerPoint presentation and let's get started. So first, I'm going to review, why are you here? I'm going to ask that, for you to think in your head, why are you here? And I'll tell you what brought me here to this webinar. And then we're going to talk to Chris Coyne from GCA. And we're going to then go through any questions that come up as we go along. And I'm also going to share with you some really cool opportunities to help the patients and the families of patients using the medical facilities and services that we have here in Philadelphia. It's a charity and organization I'm very passionate about. We're going to go over the series schedules and again, answer any questions. And then all of the contact information for the guest speakers from today through the end of the series will be at the end of the handout in the PowerPoint. So I'm here because I know I can help clients do extraordinary things with investment real estate. They're paying for kids' college in cash, they're funding their retirement. And before we get into specifics, I'd like you to think, what brought you here? Thinking 15 to 30 years ahead, what are you looking to do? Are you saving for a kid's college, planning for retirement? Maybe you want to improve your lifestyle. Is there some other reason? And I'm curious if you already own a home or if you don't yet own a home, because that's really the first step to becoming, building your wealth is to become a homeowner. And then after a period of time, split the equity in that home and buy another investment property so that your tenant is paying down your debt again while you control 2 assets. And then I'm curious, what's your biggest fear about becoming a landlord? Because I've been a landlord for 18 years. And while I have some stories to share with you, they're all solvable. And I'm just curious if there's anybody that's holding themselves back because they're more concerned about what is possible rather than what is probable. So if we make good decisions, have good advisors surrounding us when we buy the real estate, then we are going to be more likely to have a good experience while we are, being landlords and building wealth over a period of time. So the biggest headaches I've had with investment real estate were mostly relational and or something that happened because of a huge storm like Hurricane Sandy. I had a big roof leak and I just worked with the tenant because we had a good relationship. We were able to take care of it. I had my roofing contractor in there shortly after and we just took care of it. The only call I ever got after hours was a 9 p.m. call on a Friday night. There was extra snow. It was a period of winter where we had so much snow. And, the tenant called me and they put a bucket under the hole where the leak was coming through. And there was nothing a roofer could do at the time. There's nothing I could do at the time. So I just told him I'm going to take care of it, and we got it taken care of. I've had cats pee in basements and the tenant fight to keep the deposit. I figured, you know what, it's not worth it to fight over that. So I'll give you your deposit back. And I just paid a contractor to bleach it. And from then on, I didn't allow tenants with cats to use the basement. So you learn your lessons as you go. Another tenant, there was brick dust in the building, and he claimed that he got sick from it. He never sued me or did anything like that, but that was a small scare that I had, and we just worked it out. And lastly, I recently had a dryer fire. My property's been managed for the past 3 years, which I highly recommend. If you do better at your day job, let somebody manage your property, because the property manager I use, JG Real Estate, who will be on one of these calls in the coming weeks, they take better care of the property than I can myself. They do annual inspections. They're always proactive to let me know what repairs are needed. And when the tenant called 911 and called JG to let them know about this dryer fire, they were able to tell her what to do to stay safe, to preserve the property and get it taken care of. So, all of these things while, in 18 years, these are the five biggest things. Up until last week, I had four big things. This past week, I had five big things, and I'm still smiling. So if there's anything that's holding you back, I want you to consider that I'm a single woman and I started building my portfolio when I was 27. I had no special knowledge. And after graduating graduate school, and then buying two properties, I felt like I had learned so much more, no offense to my education, but I learned so much more by going through the process of buying rental properties than I did in graduate school because it is so real world. There's no magic. You just need the right advisors, partners like me, like Chris, like JG Real Estate, and the other professionals that I'll introduce you to. So what got me, excited about investment real estate? It's one of my most passionate topics in real estate that I can talk to you about, especially for my clients who have kids, because college is expensive right now. And if college is preventing recent graduates from buying properties now because their student debt is throwing their debt to income ratios off, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like in 15 years when my clients who are on their second and third kid, what their college tuition costs are going to be in 15 years. So using the strategies that I'm suggesting and what my clients have already done with investment real estate, you can, take the steps and build your real estate portfolio so that when your kid is ready to go to college, you have equity built up. You can pay for it in cash and your tenant will pay it back for you through the rent. Or if you're building for retirement, I don't know about you, I'm a single woman. There ain't nobody that's going to take care of me when I'm old. So I know my properties, I need to create that income for myself and build that wealth because as Grant Cardone says, you can't save your way to a million. And real estate, one in four landlord or one in four owners in these zip codes in Philadelphia, I just picked two, are landlords. So if I could do it as a single woman and one in four homes in these areas are owned by a landlord, there's no reason that you can't do it. And I would love for you to lean on my experience and put your team around you so that you can make a good choice when you're looking to buy investment real estate. And of course, if you go to my Homekeeper website, you will see that I'll give you access to all the contractors and professionals that I recommend throughout the process. So when I got started, like I said, I just had advisors telling me, Fishtown was a great area to invest. And they taught me some basics about real estate investment and I read some books. I didn't understand everything. And most investors and landlords I meet, they've learned what they know on the street. So, you're already a step ahead of the curve when you have a team of advisors like me and the people that I'll connect you with. But what I generally advise still is pick an area you feel comfortable with. Feel comfortable to go pick up the rent if you had to. That's a good judge of whether an area might be a good area for you to invest in. You also want to know the rental rates of an area compared to the payment amount. So I'll obviously help you figure that out. I personally bought in my personal name because the interest rates were lower, the down payment was lower, the loans were over a shorter time frame, and I got insurance policies, umbrella insurance policies to cover my liability. So today we have Chris for insurance, and next week we're going to have Mike who's going to discuss lending for an investment property. And you just really need to have a good tenant screening process and have really good lease terms. And that's where a property manager like JG Real Estate can really help you out, especially if this is your first time. Because, what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And the adage in real estate goes, when you make money when you buy, not when you sell. So you're setting yourself up for success or failure in the preparation of the property for rent. You also need to trust your gut. People will show you who they are pretty immediately. So if people treated me poorly on the phone or were a no-show and didn't have an emergency, that might show me how they might treat me as my tenant. So trust your gut. And then, of course, treat your contractors well and build up a good rapport with a bunch of contractors. And again, you can access mine. So that way, when you have maintenance needs, you have trusted professionals to go to, and they'll put you at the top of their list rather than needing to go find somebody when you have an emergency. Or better yet, have JG manage your real estate portfolio and you don't have to worry about it. and they'll be in on the seminar in a couple of weeks. And I will absolutely be happy to talk to you about my life before and after having them manage my properties. So why real estate? So there are many benefits of investing in real estate. The first is you get tax benefits. So there's the mortgage interest deduction that you get when you own a piece of property. And when you become an investor, you can actually deduct more things like maintenance and repairs, property management, cleaning, and things like that. So you want to talk to your CPA about how that will affect your taxes. You're also building up your equity. So when you're taking out a loan on the property, you're paying principal and interest every month, or rather your tenant will be, and they're basically building up your equity in that property. So if you buy a property this year for 200,000, and even if there's no appreciation in 30 years, you'll own a property that has $200,000 equity built up into it. And then if you're lucky enough to have historic appreciations, which is 3 to 5%, a home that's $200,000 is worth $648,000 in 30 years. So, imagine that over 30 years at 4% appreciation. If you're from Philly, you've been experiencing about 9 or 10% appreciation, which is outrageous and will not last forever. But at historical norms of 3 to 5%, your home price, if you buy it today at 200, will be worth about 648 at 4%. So there's absolutely still a lot of opportunity in the city. And I just heard from Chris, he just read an article that said that we are one of the most underappreciated cities, undervalued cities to invest in. So he can tell you a little bit more about that when it's his turn to present. Of course, when you buy investment real estate, there's also cash flow. So ideally, your rent is going to be 70%, or your mortgage will be 70% of your rent. So if your monthly payment is 700, you'll want your rent to be about 1,000. And then lastly, the major benefit of investing in real estate is that it is leveraged. So when you buy a home that you live in, so you start out with the first home, you're putting 3.5, 5, 10%, 20% down, and you can get a big seller assist, which helps offset some of your closing costs. When you're buying your investment property, you're putting 20 or 25% down. So, whereas in stocks, and we'll get to that, you're still only putting 20% down when you're buying a piece of property and you're controlling an asset that's worth that much more. So let's look at that. So stocks is basically dollar to dollar investing, whereas real estate's leveraged investing. So if you invest $30,000 in stocks, you're buying an asset that's worth $30,000. And if it's earning 8%, that's the equivalent of investing $30,000 into a $100,000 property. And at 3% appreciation, that $100,000 house today is worth $130,000 in 10 years. So in essence, in that same 10-year period, you only need to be at 3% appreciation versus your stocks need to be at 8% appreciation to earn the same amount, because you're controlling an asset that's worth more. The interest earned doesn't have to be as much. And 3% is at the low of the historical average of 3 to 5%. Now let's imagine you're 10, 15, 20 years into paying down your mortgage and the home is appreciating. If you want to use the equity in your stocks, unless you are using some sort of complicated stock thing, Wall Street thing, I have no idea, you have to sell the asset in order to use that equity. Whereas in real estate, you can borrow against it and then have the tenant pay down the debt again for you. So like I said, stocks can be hard to understand. Wall Street can be hard to understand, but real estate is tangible. It's easy to learn. Companies come and go, but everybody needs a house to live in. So, the key is to make good, wise choices when you start with your group of trusted advisors, helping you, and we can help you know a lot of the information that will help you know whether or not it's going to be a good investment for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, so far as we can tell what's going to happen into the future. We don't have a crystal ball. So my clients are building wealth with one of two main strategies. So if they're renting now, just by buying their own home and stopping renting, they are getting themselves what I call the $1.2 million advantage. over 30 years. And that's because a renter who's paying $1,000 a month in rent right now, most likely their rent is going to go up every month or every year rather. And let's say it goes up a minimum of 3%. We're not even factoring in the fact that they might move to a higher, as their salary goes up, they might start paying more in rent somewhere else. We're just considering 3% appreciation or inflation. They're starting at $1,000. They will have spent $570,000 in rent over those 30 years. Whereas a homeowner, if you put $1,000 to pay your principal and interest at 4% appreciation, at the end of that 30-year period, you control an asset that you own outright at $648,000. So the difference between the net negative of being a renter at 570 versus being a net positive as a homeowner at 648 is the $1.2 million advantage. So it's the evening, or you may be watching this later and you're at work and the numbers are just going over your head. I get it. And I'm going to, later in the webinar, I'm going to invite you to email me some information and I'm going to help you work a scenario that's unique to you. So you don't have to worry about if that's not 100% clear right now. Now, the second strategy that my clients are using if they already own a home is one of two things. One is they're either moving up. So I have clients, I'll call them Linda and Jason, and they just bought a house last week and they're converting their one-bedroom condo into a rental, and they just bought a new home that's a 3-bedroom home for their growing family. And then another kind of client, we'll call them Eli and Krista. These are their real names, by the way. So Eli and Krista, they did the same thing, but I have other clients who actually took HELOCs or home equity lines of credits out on their homes and then are buying investment properties. So I have a couple clients doing that as well. So you can either move up into a new home if you don't love your home now and you want a different home for your lifestyle, or you can do what I call split the equity, borrow against your current home or use any other cash assets you have and get a new rental property so you can stay in the home that you live in and love. And again, I'll be asking you to email me some information so I can run those scenarios for you. So the 6 easy steps for building wealth in real estate are simply: first, together we'll determine your purchasing power. Second, we'll identify areas and property types that fit your budget. Then we'll visit and analyze properties, and then you make an offer. And then we'll go through the inspection contingency and other contingencies, and then we work to lease out the property. So together, I'll be there every step of the way as we go through those steps. So here's information about before 2 weeks from today. Email Stacy@phillyliving.com, and if you're watching this recorded, you can also do this. Email me your primary address, including city, state, and zip, and how much you owe on it. So if you have 1 mortgage or 2 or 3, to let me know everything you owe against the property, what your monthly mortgage payment is, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance, if any. If you want, you can also include the interest rate that you're paying now. Right now, rates, I believe if you're at 4.75% or higher, now may be the time to refinance regardless. And Mike Gliatone from Center City Mortgage and Investments will be happy to run through those, what that would look like for you. And then also email me if you have any other cash assets that you'll be using for the purchase so I can consider that in my calculations. And what I'll do is I'll run some preliminary numbers for you, connect you to the lender if you'd like, and present you with a property that would actually work for your specific scenario so that you can see that you actually can do this with what is currently available on the market today. So, moving into managing risk with proper insurance with Chris Coyne, I am going to turn my face off.
Oh, keep it on. It's such a pretty face.
Oh, Chris. So
anyway, so my name.
Yep. Go ahead.
My name is Chris Coyne. I'm a principal at GCA Insurance and Financial Services. On a side note, we talked a little bit earlier about that article on Fox Business, and it's really enlightening. We've seen so much appreciation in Philadelphia over the past 10, 20 years that people are always hesitant to move into these markets because they're, oh, we're at the top, there's no upside. In fact, this particular article looked at values of real estate, potential earning power, and a couple other factors, and they looked at which major cities were the cheapest with respect to real estate and ability to earn money. And Philadelphia came in fourth. I think Pittsburgh was the best, but Philadelphia is still a huge value. And, with all these businesses moving in, both small and large, the need for educated, high-earning people to live in Philadelphia is enormous. And I think over the course of the next 10 years, it's just going to get bigger. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Today, we're going to talk about how to manage risk with insurance. First, I wanted to say, though, Stacy, thank you so much for inviting me. It really is an honor to be here, and I hope that I can help and work with your clients in the future to help them build wealth.
Absolutely.
Tonight, what we're going to talk about briefly is we're going to talk how do you manage risk? And there are fundamentally four things you can do with risk. You can accept risk, you can mitigate risk, you can transfer risk, and you can insure risk. So tonight, primarily, what we're going to focus on is how to insure risk. And I guess most importantly for your clients is, how do I correctly purchase insurance? There's a lot of insurance agents out there. There's a lot of different types of policies. And we want to make sure that there are certain things that you're focusing on that will protect your asset and your ability to grow wealth going forward. First thing we're going to look at is what's called a habitational risk. These would be buildings that you purchase that are, for the most part, turnkey with little or no work needed. The concept here is to buy a building whose rents are low and hope that as the leases turn over, you can raise the rents and increase your return on investment. So let's talk a little bit about some of the issues you're going to run into. One thing is we've got to be conscious of what the value is. How much do I insure this building for? Understand that the contract you have with an insurance company is to replace what was there, right? So if you buy a place for $100,000 and it's a 6,000 square foot place on Spring Garden Street, it's going to cost a whole lot more than $100,000 to replace. And understand that when you're looking at those kinds of numbers, you've got to understand that you have to replace that asset because it is that asset that is providing you with the income. Now, when you're looking at buildings, there's going to be two fundamental types of insurance. There's going to be something called a policy with co-insurance, and that's an agreement with the insurance company that you will insure the property for a certain percentage of the true replacement value. Generally, it's 80 or 90%. The second is what's called a stated value policy. This is where you talk to the insurance company, you say, I want to insure it for $200,000, and it's insured for $200,000. If it burns down, you're getting $200,000. Again, with respect to building values, you want to make sure that your agent goes through the process and provides you with a replacement cost value, and then you can make your decisions from there. The next big thing is, tenants. You've got to make sure that your tenants are carrying tenant insurance. Make sure they carry at least $300,000 in liability coverage so that if they're involved in something that might result in liabilities against you and the property, that at least $300,000 of that problem will be covered by their policy. Things would be fights. You have problems in the apartment. If there was, we had one 15 years ago where a couple kids lived on Bainbridge Street. They were, cooking on a hibachi grill, and they go down to South Street. Grill blows over and burns down the house.
Oh my gosh!
It'd be nice to be able to, collect at least $300,000 from that tenant to rebuild your property. The other thing that you want to look at is, Stacy was talking a little bit about how you own a property. Generally, you're either going to own it in an LLC or you're going to own it personally. So when you're owning it personally, especially, you want to review what the exposures are at that property. Is it are the stairs going up to the house, 4 or 5 feet off the ground? Are there decks on the property? Are there balconies? Things of that nature. And these are the types of exposures that you want to protect yourself against. Generally, we're going to recommend, if you buy it in your personal name, we want to make sure that you have a big umbrella policy, because understand, once the insurance is done, you become personally liable for whatever the additional damages are. And umbrella policies, which is like an extension of the liability coverage, is extremely inexpensive. Sidewalks and roofs. Insurance companies don't like Philadelphia for 2 reasons: sidewalks and roofs. Sidewalks are going to get you trips and falls, and let me tell you, they happen everywhere. You can't necessarily avoid them. And Philadelphia is also full of flat roof houses. So in the winter, as Stacy was referring, or even in a heavy rain, they become swimming pools. And generally that swimming pool drains into the 3rd floor or 2nd floor of your building. So we want to make sure, and this would be a mitigating thing, we make sure that, hey, we understand 2 defined risks. Let's check our sidewalks every year. Every couple of years, let's make sure we have someone crawl up on the roof and take a picture of your roof so that you can see that it's in good condition. In addition to helping your long-term insurance rates, it's also a peace of mind, so you don't get that call at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because there's water coming in from the roof. So cameras, alarms, good housekeeping, these are all types of things that insurance companies love. It's a great idea to present your property as best you can in an effort to get the lowest pricing possible. So the other thing that Stacy's having some people manage her property. So if you're having people manage your property, I think it's also important that you take a look and understand what coverages they're providing under their policy. We had a very unique situation with a client of ours where they had hired someone to go into the property. They had keys. They followed all the procedures that were listed in the lease, 24-hour notice, knocked 3 times. He walked in, she was on the couch listening to music. She freaked out, and the landlord wound up getting sued for this. So just be aware of their coverages. Nowadays, you never know what can happen, so you better be prepared, and be prepared before an incident happens. This is something we could talk through if we ever got that far. Now, this next issue is critical, especially to people who are new into the real estate business. Generally, your first property is going to be relatively levered. So you want to make sure that we're protecting the reason we're doing all this, and that is the business income or the rental income that you're getting from your property. Example might be you have a $3,000 mortgage, $500 worth of expenses, and you've got $5,000 a month of rent roll. Place burns to the ground, and it's the middle of the summer, and Philadelphia's booming. You can't even talk to a contractor for 7-8 months to get to your property. Most policies are going to stop paying you that $5,000 a month in replacement income after 12 months. I highly recommend that you, when you're looking for insurance, ask your agent for at least 18 to 24 months of rent protection, of that business income protection. That is critical. Last thing you want to do is be 12 months in to a project, it's half done, and then all of a sudden you're not getting that $5,000. So now, in addition to your construction expenses, you've got a $3,500 a month nut until you get tenants in there. So this is really, really, really important. So again, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to let you know, we had a couple people hop on late.
Okay.
So as public service announcement, you should be able to download the handouts to the presentation in your control panel. So check to the side if you are an attendee. And then also, if you have any questions, I just sent out a message in the chat box to let me know if you had any questions for me or Chris. You can raise your hand or you can write it in the chat box as Chris is moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. So the second thing we're going to talk about is builder's risk insurance. Generally, these type of investments are, buildings you're going to purchase in growing or good neighborhoods, but the rents are low because of the condition of the property. Here what you're trying to do is purchase that property, either renovate it or destroy it and build a new one, and then rent for a premium because it's a new property. Now, if you're doing any work to a property, inasmuch that it will be vacant while the work is being done, you've got to let your agent know. You must reflect in your application the fact that you're doing work, and I would also highly recommend that you email your agent at least once outlining the work you're going to do. Why this is so important is that if your agent provides the wrong type of policy and you have a major problem, the insurance could be null and void. Be upfront and make sure that he or she understands the scope of the project. We had a situation, or it wasn't me, it was a client who left and then had the situation where he got a policy from an agent that said it was a rented building. He was gutting it and doing work on it, and it caught on fire. So now you've got $1 million property with no insurance on it because the agent never told the insurance company what was going on. And thankfully, I think for the most part it worked out. But I mean, that's the last place you want to be. You just invested $1 million in the building, it burnt to the ground, and you're getting a letter from your insurance company that says, I'm not sure we're going to cover this. So again, be sure about this. So the two types you're going to look at, and it's even like a little renovation. There's renovator's risk, where you're going to keep the building and just improve it, and then there's builder's risk, where you're going to destroy it or you buy a lot and build the whole building. The renovator's risk, if you think it's going to be more than 60 days and there's going to be nobody in that building, let your guy know. I think it's really, really, really important.
Chris,
the other,
I'm confused.
What's that?
I'm confused. I thought you were their insurance agent.
Well, what I'm trying to do is provide a general a general overview. Hopefully, I will. And some of the words of wisdom I'm purveying here this evening will result in hordes of clients coming my way.
Awesome.
But so here we're going to talk about a few things, and we'll move on to the rest of this. So the first thing with builder's risk, if you're going to hire a contractor, a general contractor, make sure he is a general contractor. Don't just rely on a certificate of insurance, which is a proof of insurance that he'll hand you. Make sure that you take the time and review the actual policy. If I'm doing business with someone, I will not release a policy that's a builder's risk without seeing the actual insurance department of the general contractor's policy. Reason being is a contractor can get a carpenter's contract, general liability policy for $1,000. If he's correctly rated as a general contractor, you're looking at a minimum of $5,000. So a lot of these guys will cut corners and just hand you a certificate, but it's not covering what you need it to cover. Next thing you want to make sure is that you are listed on the general contractor's policy as an additional insured. All right. You want to make sure that that the general contractor and all the subcontractors have hold harmless agreements. And again, what we're trying to do is transfer risk from you to them. Okay. And ideally, in a builder's risk situation, a vast majority of the risk should be transferred to the general contractor and the subcontractor. Okay. You want to make sure also that in your agreement with your general contractor that he or she is responsible for collecting insurance certificates at least on a monthly basis. All right. This is a huge one. Do not ever write a check to a subcontractor. Make sure all of your payments go through your general contractor. What happens here is that the second you make a direct payment to a subcontractor, you become the general contractor. And if something happens, they're going to come after you and not the general contractors. The general contractor's going to say, oh, he paid him. All right, so it's really important. This is especially important with roofers, demo guys, and foundation guys. Never write them checks. And the things that we're looking for in some of these contractor policies is exclusions for demo guys, demo guys, roofers, and foundation guys. So it's really important that you know all this stuff up front. Last thing you want is, your roofer to burn down 3 buildings and, there's no coverage. Okay. So the other things that are real important under these builder's risk policies, there are certain conditions under the policy that dictate when the project must start and when it stops, when coverage, so for example, a lot of the contracts, it could be, you have to start the project at some form within 30, 45, 60, 90 days. And then it's the same thing on the end side. When everything's done, you need to notify the insurance company, so that, and generally they're going to give you 90 days as the general, policy there. But, they need to know when the work is done because now it becomes a different kind of risk. So as a word of warning is just, know what's covered by your GC, by your own policy. Take the time to review these. That's why it's really important to have an agent like myself who will sit down with you, read the documents and really help you with, purchasing the correct insurance. Nobody likes to pay for insurance, but the last thing you want to do is, get a cheap policy and then find out there's no coverage when you have a major claim, and it happens more than you think. Anyway, so they're the 2 things that I wanted to talk about, and kind of the services that we provide, through Stacy and through other real estate agents, is to help you walk through, what can be some complicated decisions, and really help you understand, how you can manage risk. Again, primarily what we're going to do is try to, fix the sidewalks, clean, make sure the roof's good. That's mitigating risk. Transfer risk. If we can transfer risk to anyone, we want to do it, our general contractors, our subcontractors. And then most importantly, we want to make sure that if you're owning personal, real estate and there's tenants in there, we want to make sure that you have a lot of liability insurance, just in case something goes horribly wrong. We want to make sure that there is protection for you and really your family's future as you're building this nest egg and creating wealth in the real estate space. Anyway, thank you so much, Stacy. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And any questions? Honestly, I'm happy to schedule time with anyone. If you just want to talk, if you have particular instances you want to look, go over, just let me know. Always available.
Yeah, so I don't know about you, I learned a lot, and if I can learn something after doing it for this long, I know that you probably learned a lot, and tomorrow you might have questions. So Chris's email, coinc@gcarisk.com, is on your screen. If you joined us late, there's handouts with his bullet points and with the PowerPoint so that you'll have his information and everything that we're sharing with you tonight, and this will be recorded, and I'll make sure I send that out to you tomorrow. So just wrapping up, I would like to bring to your attention, feel free to raise your hands and interrupt me at any time, and I'll answer any questions, whether it's regarding tonight's topic or not. So when we opened, I promised to bring to your attention an opportunity to help an organization in Philadelphia. So if you're in Philly or you've been to Philly, you probably know that we are chock full of medical facilities and hospitals, the best in the world. And we have a lot of people who come to see us from all over the country. And as you know, taking care of yourself and your family is very expensive. So I figured the way I can contribute in a real estate way is to spread the word about Hosts for Hospitals, which is essentially looking for hosts that will open up a bedroom in their home or a home when they're away to a visiting patient or a family of a patient seeking treatment in Philadelphia. So it's as simple as emailing lodging@hostforhospitals.org or visiting hostforhospitals.org or calling, and they'll schedule a time to meet with you at your home to review whether or not it's a good fit for you. It obviously doesn't cost you anything. The people who participate, like let's say they're coming for a medical treatment, they're staying here for 7 days, it only costs them $140 just through the organization, the administrative fee, $20 a day. Whereas if they were to stay at an Airbnb or at a hotel, that could easily be $1,400 for the week. So by opening up your home, if you have a spare bedroom, you are opening yourself up to an opportunity to engage with somebody in a whole new way. Somebody who's using our city and our vast resources, and just using the resources that you have. So if you have a spare bedroom, I encourage you. And right now they're specifically looking for people with minimal stairs. So anybody in Center City in an elevator building would be amazing. But they're looking for hosts. We're looking for hosts anywhere. Thank you for my little PSA on that. The series schedule, so in 2 weeks, well, tomorrow is the afternoon session of tonight's session. Chris is not going to be there. The guest speakers are not necessarily going to be on the afternoon call. My goal is to keep it 30 minutes for people at work, and these will be recorded. So if you can come to the Tuesday nights and you want to be live, they're 7 to 8. The next one is on July 9th. So that's in 2 weeks from tonight. So happy 4th of July in the meantime. We'll be going over investor financing key considerations. Then in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about processing a tenant and property management. And then 2 weeks thereafter, we're going to be talking about how to analyze an area and a property for flip or rental. And then lastly, the following week, we're going to be looking at how you can use an IRA. So rather than having your IRA invest in stocks or bonds, you can actually have it invest in real estate, which is so cool. And we'll just talk about other miscellaneous real estate topics. Again, I'm offering, if you have any questions about real estate as we're wrapping up, you can feel free to email me, Stacy@phillyliving.com. You can raise your hand. I'm kind of keeping my eye on the chat box over here. You can chat with me whenever you feel comfortable. Then I'm just going to run through the last of these slides. So this is just a reminder for 2 weeks from tonight. If you can email me right away so that I have time to do my homework for you, send me your primary living address, how much you owe, your monthly payment, and if you have any other cash assets you want to use to invest. And I will run some scenarios for you and show you a property that you could buy with what you have. And this is a list of our guest speakers, so you have those. And all of the contact information and pictures so you can see exactly who is participating in this series. These are my go-to guys. And they'd love to be your go-to guys. And I'm your go-to gal. There I am. And then lastly, I wanted to bring to your attention, kellerinc.com has a series of real estate books that Gary Keller, the owner of Keller Williams, the founder of Keller Williams, one of the leading real estate industry experts. He has produced these 3 books that I encourage you to pick up if you don't have a copy. If you come see me in the office, I can get you a copy. But The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, really good overview of owning real estate as an investment. Hold, specifically about buying properties to rent out. And then Flip is specifically about buying properties to flip and earn money that way. So I hope you've gotten something out of tonight's webinar. And if you feel free to or would like to share a comment in the chat box, I'll stay on for a couple minutes just to engage with you. And if you want to say hello, I'm going to unmute you all. So give me 1 minute to do that. Let's see. Oh, let's see. If you guys wanted to say something, you can unmute yourself. If you are not in a spot where you can unmute yourself, I understand, but I'm glad you're here, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. All right, looks like everybody's really shy tonight. So I know who you are, so we can be texting offline. And I really thank you for coming. And thank you again, Chris Coyne, for participating in tonight's webinar. And I look forward to working with you soon.
Stacy, thank you so much for the opportunity. And again, if anyone has questions, please feel free to give me a buzz or drop me a line on my email. And we can schedule time to talk. Again, thank you so much. It was a great experience.
Awesome. Talk to you later. Probably see you tomorrow.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.